Welcome to another episode of the Infinite Energy Podcast. As usual, with me today is Alexander Wolf. I'm your host, Danny Mueller from Frankensolar, and with us today is Romuald Goure. He's the managing director at Fronius Canada. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Romuald, for those of you that don't know you, you're French, right? So you grew up in France. Why don't you tell us a little bit about growing up in France? What was that like?
It was really nice, especially if you love cheese and wine, of
no
course.
doubt.
No, very, very nice country. But I came to Canada first time I was 13 years old, and I fall in love with this country, right? So I always thought at some point, in my life, I will be back. And of course, Fronius, for me, the opportunity to get back here.
So what brought you to, as a 13-year-old, brought you to Canada then?
School. So we were lucky enough in France when you were 12, 13, 14 years old to have those exchanges with students for 2 weeks. So I was lucky enough to come here 2 weeks in family in Ottawa.
Yes.
And met, of course, all the other students, go to school like a little Canadian, I would say.
Yeah.
Experienced the nice weather of Ottawa in February. So it was also something very interesting. I remember all my life when we did land, we had to stay in the plane because there was like a snowstorm. And I was seeing this guy, filling out the tank of the plane and being like half white because with the wind and the snow, so snow was building up. And I always have this image in mind. And of course, a couple of months after, the Canadian student came and stayed with us for 2 weeks. So this was very much what really started my interest into traveling Canada, but not only. It's a great experience, and again, thanks to school, right? That's how it started. Yeah.
And you said you like traveling. So any real cool experiences on your travels?
Yeah, I think many experiences. Every country where you go, which is a bit different than your home country, is always an experience, obviously. One experience maybe I can share is one of my trip in Senegal, in Africa, where we were driving in the desert for hours, and we were alone, just with a couple of friends. And when we did stop, suddenly, after hours of driving alone in the desert, we see 50, 60 kids running out from nowhere. And this was really interesting and surprising to me. And those kids, they brought us. They because in Senegal they talk Wolof, they talk a little bit of French and English, and so they asked us if we wanted to go to the village, and so we did end up in this village in the middle of the desert, and we met the chief of the tribe. I think he was 73 years old, and he had 12 wives, I believe, totally.
Wow.
And 15 or 16 kids. And he was explaining us, his life. And they invited us to stay with them through a party. And we slept in those tents and huts. And that was really an eye-opener for me because not only it's really nice, really different, but after that I was thinking, okay, would I open my door to someone I don't know who is knocking on my door, driving or passing by my village or my city, and, invite them to stay at night and throw a party for them? And the answer is probably not. This was one, of course, we all have, many memories of our trips, but that's one of the cool memory I always have in mind after many, many years. Yeah.
That's awesome. And how did you end up getting into to Fronius and then the solar industry?
So Fronius, my background is more on the welding side. So Fronius has 3 business units, of course, solar energy, where we manufacture inverters, but also welding machines and battery chargers. So the link is, of course, power electronics inverters. Same knowledge, at the end, same core business in terms of R&D, production, and so on. So I started more on the welding side. And I joined Fronius. I was working for a competitor in the past of Fronius on the welding side. If we can say competitors, because we are not really on the, it's welding, but of course we had machines which were more, much more technical, much more high-end. And for me, I was very young, and everybody, even in my company, the competitor was saying, well, Fronius is a great company, great product, and if you have an opportunity to join Fronius, that's a company with a future. So my own management in my previous companies, if you have an opportunity, you should go.
That's awesome.
And so I did start to work for Fronius in France, focusing only on welding. And after that, of course, Canadian opportunity and solar came up very quickly after that. Yeah.
So you went, obviously, the solar industry in Canada became big in, 2010, 2011 through the Green Energy Act, right? I came in a little bit later myself, I think a couple of years after the initial boom, but I'm sure you have lots of stories to tell about the initial, we called it the Wild Wild West, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was, as you say, I think Wild Wild West or Far West, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a good, definitely a good description. The beginning was, the Green Energy Act from the government of Ontario at this time would just launch incredible program, incredible incentive, probably the best in the world with crazy rates. And the start was really crazy because there was this, big push, big impact from the government with this program. And on the other side, I remember at the beginning sitting in the first events where the potential future solar stakeholders, and I remember being sitting in a room in a hotel where around 400 people, and the speaker at some point was asking, okay, please, people who have at least maybe a year of experience in solar, please stand up. And only 2 people stand up, and I was one of the 2. And my solar knowledge was very limited because, again, Fronius had a lot of experience, myself and Fronius in Canada, 0 experience, right? So that's how everything started with people coming from all over. You had bankers, solar flower people, It's I have, of course, many stories like, all of us. But it was extremely exciting to start. Solar is still pretty new. So to start a new industry in a new country with new people, new program, new domestic content, new everything. Very interesting, definitely. Yeah.
No doubt. You touched at the domestic content requirement. That was certainly a challenge for everyone. How did Fronius handle it different than maybe some other companies out there?
So that's a good point. Fronius, as always, did handle the domestic content in a different way, definitely than the other stakeholder, the other competitors. So I remember when I read this program and understood that domestic content were required, I had a meeting with the board of Fronius International in Austria, explaining them that there was a market, there was a great program. Obviously, we want to play with the product, but we need domestic content. So there were roughly two possibilities. Either we do everything on our own, so we set up an assembly line, and so the domestic content were assembly, testing and packing, right? So it's really putting the inverter together, more or less like a Lego game, right? So you don't manufacture all the components, you just assemble them, test them, and pack them. But of course, for Fronius, it means also a lot of quality requirement which need to be met. So one way was do it ourselves. The other way was, like all of our competitors, or at least the serious one, find a subcontractor to do it. And there are definitely some very good companies in Canada to do that, and in Ontario. There was a third way, which was, I won't talk too much about it, but which was more the MacGyver way. You take an already assembled inverter in your basement, disassemble it and reassemble it, and here you go, your domestic content. So I think we had a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, the decision we made at Fronius was to set up our own assembly line, our own testing, and our own packing. So we did expand our facility. We did invest, so we got this assembly line, hired the employees, and just starting to getting all the parts, all the goods from Europe, and starting to assemble everything, test, and pack, which was a big challenge for us because initially our subsidiary was a sales and service subsidiary, not an assembly, quality control, packing subsidiary, both in terms of setup and also in terms of people, right? So people, product, processes, product we had. We are the people, we put in place the process, and we started.
So Fronius had and still has a competitive advantage because of its three divisions, right? So you have a local office and warehouse in Canada as it is, right? So I guess it makes it easier for you guys than some of your competitors to have a local team here to also service the solar side, right? I think has that helped you throughout the years?
Yeah, absolutely. Fronius is a family-owned business, initially from Europe, from Austria, a small country next to Germany. Fronius is always thinking long-term, and when we say long-term, we mean 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, almost a generation. There was a way to enter the market, which is easy to enter, easy to exit. Is just, you get 1 or 2 employees, home-based, you take a subcontractor, and if everything goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't go so well, you didn't reinvest anything here, right? We made the decision to invest and to invest for the long term with a facility in Mississauga, Ontario, 10 minutes from the airport. We're on the 401, so you can see the facility actually from the 401. In this facility, we have, of course, all the warehouse, finance, everything you need to run a business. But the most important is our local tech support. We support Canadian customers from Canada with Canadian employees for 12 years, 13 years now. We have a warehouse, so inventory. So we stock the product here in Mississauga, Ontario. We have our sales team in Ontario. We have our marketing team in Ontario. We have our back office team in Ontario. So we have the complete setup here in Mississauga, Ontario. And till to this day, we are the only manufacturer who did invest not only into just bringing product and putting in place a sales force, but also having the full support warehouse, again, tech support, marketing and sales force here in Canada. So sometimes, you guys know, of course, and everybody know, we call it the solar coaster, right? This industry where you have ups and downs, it's part of the game. It's a very, very dynamic industry. But the point is, whatever happened in the industry, we are here, and we will be here, and we'll always support the market. And we had at some point very, very high market share. And we were able to support those customers. But even if we have times where we may have a couple of months where we don't necessarily have the product we need, we keep supporting here, right? And we'll be here, for many more years. And it was always the Fronius philosophy. Of course, we get the advantage of having 2, almost 3 business units in Canada, overhead cost, building, and so on. So this is a big, big plus for customer. We are extremely bankable, and because it's a strategic choice to have those 3 business units, right? And as I was speaking at the beginning, having the overhead cost in terms of R&D, production, where the knowledge, the component, almost the design is the same between bracket. It's a big, big plus for us, and again, for our customer on the long term. We see today people from this tree calling us back saying, "Oh, you told us 5-6 years ago, you're right." And no, I didn't buy Fronius, unfortunately, but I'm stuck because I cannot get parts. I cannot really get tech support. Or I have to call a different country, different time zone. They don't understand the Canadian needs. So we're here. We're always here. We'll always be here. So big, I think, advantage. Of course, we love it this way. But most important, our customer and partners love it this way. Right?
You're mentioning the 3 business units, and those are welding, solar inverters, and charging, right? They don't seem like typical business units that go together. Can you explain a little bit more why those 3 business units?
So you're completely right. It's a very, very legitimate question. A lot of people wonder at the beginning, and may seem Fronius is all over the place, like welding machines, battery charger, solar inverters, totally different customer, totally different market, totally different strategy, totally different game where solar, you're more, high volume, low margin. Welding is still high volume, but you cannot really compare. More margin, the way you support the customer is different, the way you sell the product is different, the type of services you offer is different. So everything is very different. Now, if you take a solar inverter, if you take a welding machine and you look at the inverter, And if you look at the battery charger and you just put them, in the same room and just open the housing, what you are going to discover inside is power electronics, PC boards, component, capacitor, and whatsoever. So that's the link between the three business units. The link is the product, and the product is the power electronics. And what we do at Fronius is we play with energy, with electricity, with current. So we take a certain type of energy and convert it, invert it, rework it into a different electricity, a different current. So the process is more or less the same if you look, with how we say, bird's eye view. Yeah. The process is the same. You are going to play with energy through power electronics. Now, again, the application, the way to go to market, to support, to sell, and so on is totally different. But this core business is what makes Fronius extremely strong, extremely bankable. It's very important to understand that our company, we don't have any loan with banks. We don't have any credit. We don't have any mortgage for anything. We are not public. Everything is financed by Fronius, absolutely everything. New production plant, new warehouse, new subsidiaries. Every employee we hire, and we hire thousands of employees the last few years, is financed by Fronius. Why that? Because we are very innovative with the technology, conservative with the money. But we grow organic, and we can only do that because of those three business units. It's a unique business model. You won't find any solar inverter manufacturer who do welding or battery charger. You won't find any competitor in the welding world who is also manufacturing battery charger and so and same with charger. So it's a very unique business model which makes us extremely bankable, again extremely safe for partners and customers, who allow us to have the freedom to spend the money in R&D. So we are extremely innovative. There is a cost to be innovative. You need a lot of people, a lot of bright people. You need the right facility, the right tool. This costs a lot of money. If we would depend on banks, and we see it with our competitors today, we wouldn't be able to invest this money into R&D, right? So that's why you're going to see a lot of product and a lot of services over a period of 5-10 years, which are extremely innovative. And that's the reason why we can finance also the support and the local support. So make us very unique in the industry.
Excellent. You mentioned the early success Fronius had in the early market in Ontario. What were some of the experiences you had with Fronius building up that local facility and that gold rush at the early beginning in Ontario?
It's my emotions were also a bit of a solar coaster because you get the excitement of a new program, new adventure, new everything. You put everything in place, but when you have everything in place, now the program is great, but the implementation was a little bit chaotic, to say the least, at the beginning. So we were manufacturing inverters, competitors were bringing inverters, people were setting up companies. And finally, some of the hydro companies were not allowing system to be connected. So we did end up, I believe, the first year, after only a few months, with, I don't remember if it's something like 8,000 or 9,000 households who did buy their PV system, who got very excited, but they were not able to connect the system to the grid. And so it's 1,000 household, 2,000, 3,000 people start to talk, and you don't know the whole industry is going to go and is potentially going to flip and be dead as almost a few months after it was born. So this was a real concern, and I remember crazy time telling our employees in the assembly line, slow down as much as you can. Don't produce as slow as you can, because we can stock all those inverters because there is a market, there is a program, people are excited, but for now, systems are not connected. And of course, many meetings with hydro companies. I remember having meetings with 7 or 8 engineers from different hydro companies to explain them that there was no risk and everything was fine, and we are not going to blow up a whole city for 1 5 kilowatt system. But there was, of course, a lot of lobbying, a lot of fear, a lot of concern, like everything new. So everybody, step by step, got together and make this program, this incentive, work. But definitely it took a little time to go through. And solar, again, like everything new, there are fears. There are people who are concerned also about their job today because they generate energy in a certain way. And we are going against this, telling why we are going to generate the same energy. Absolutely. Yeah. And so we need to do a lot of education and even asking hydro companies, say, look, you have two ways to look at it, right? You can fight it or you can be part of it. And long term, if you fight it, you're going to lose. You're going to delay it, you're going to make it more difficult, but at the end of the day, it's not if it's happening, it's happening. It's how fast it's going to happen. And I think, people smart understand, and if you look, most of the hydro companies, they're very supportive. They even have sometimes small business unit or division who are pushing. I'm thinking, for example, about British Columbia, where they were very supportive of the solar industry since day one. But like every new industry, there was a lot of work to do. And for manufacturer, we did invest a lot. Of course, the beginning is, or let's say was, challenging for all stakeholders, I believe, at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, solar is such a disruptive industry, right? It's electricity has been done a certain way for the last 150 years, right? So obviously when you go from a very centralized power distribution model where you have big nuclear power plants, coal power plants, and then you go to this solar model where you have electricity generation pretty much everywhere, right? That's causing confusion to the local distribution companies, etc. And nobody wants to take any risks, and everyone's thinking, oh, does it affect my job? Does it affect the company I work for negatively? And like you're saying so well, is you can either be part of it or you can go under, the way Blockbuster went under when it didn't do the streaming model, right? It just changes.
Looking back to the first Green Energy Act in Ontario that pretty much paved the way for solar, or grid-tied solar specifically in Canada. So Fronius came with the early incentive of that very high dollar feed-in tariff. Frankensolar came pretty much for the same reasons. It was the most lucrative market in the world at that point. Looking back and looking forward, was that the right policy strategy to bring companies in, force domestic content requirements in the market, and then see how it goes? Or what would you say would have been a good strategy, knowing what happened in the last 10, 12 years?
Well, I think generally we're always smarter after, right? Yeah. If you ask me on the spot, 10 years ago, there were things which were, of course, frustrating for everybody. I remember having pretty heated conversation with people from the government who were extremely nice. That's not the question, but explaining them that you put a program together and you ask for domestic content. So that's great. So we do it, we invest, but there is, for example, there is no audit, there is no control. So today, some companies like us do invest and do it seriously, professionally, as, more or less by the book. But we also know there are some players who don't really respect the rule, and there is no consequence. There is no check, no audit, no control, no. So, there were many examples like this. But at the end of the day, again, when you start a completely new industry in a new country, of course, they always have up and down and things which can always be done better. If we look 10, 12 years after, I think it's a success because it's not only in Ontario anymore, but it's spread all over the country. I see people like you guys, I remember the distribution model 10, 12 years ago.
Much different.
It was a very different.
It was, absolutely. It was a very different animal. And in only a few years, so 10 years is nothing, right, for an industry. When I see how you guys are so professional, so organized, the knowledge, the way you manage stock, the way you do everything, I think we all did grow over those years. We all did learn together. Of course, only the strongest and the most professional did survive and went through. Yeah. But I see in 10 years a very, pioneer industry within 10 years becoming already extremely professional, extremely organized, with people who are passionate, and a market which is there and which seems steady, which may not require as many incentives as we had in the past. So if I look at the big picture, I say it started in a way which allows us to be where we are today. So I think we can be pretty happy about it. Yeah.
Fronius certainly has gone through a lot of changes over the years, right? Fronius Canada specifically. What's new? What are you guys working on these days?
Many things. Soon we should launch our new Gen 24 Primo Inverter residential market. You guys will be the first one to experience it. So we start to feed the market with a little bit of information. So that's going to be a revolution. No secret, we're waiting for new products for a little while. People love us. They love our team. They love the infrastructure. They love the product. But the market also need, new product. So a lot of things, I cannot share everything today. We'll keep a little bit of not secret, but let's say information that we'll, share step by step with the market. But I want to say, I think, for the end of the spring, beginning summer, we should have the first new generation of residential inverter on the market. So that's what we are aiming and working very hard for this. So stay tuned.
And those will be hybrid inverters, right?
That will be a hybrid inverter. That's correct. So you'll be able to use the inverter as a string inverter, as everybody know today, but of course with more feature. And they will have an opportunity to either use the inverter as an hybrid inverter or to upgrade it in the future. So you'll be able, for a customer who doesn't want to start with hybrid, they say right now, we'll have the opportunity to do that in the future.
One of the decisions we always get asked about is microinverter or optimizers. Fronius has always been steadfast about the belief in string inverters. Maybe you can share a little bit about why Fronius feels very strongly about that.
Yeah, of course. So we know it's very similar. I think all over the world when you have a new market, and not only when you have a new market, but that some other technology are very interesting for some of the user. We're talking about optimizer or microinverter. As a company, we always made the choice to not go that route. It's a choice that we really that's our belief. We never wanted to do it for many different reasons. I can give one or two, but not saying anything about negative about competition. It's just we have a different belief. We are always looking at three things, right? The reliability long term, the profitability of the company long term, and finally how you'd be able to make the product evolve over the years. If you have a product today which is not sustainable for your company, it's also not sustainable for the customer. Remember, we finance everything on our own, so we want to make sure that when we launch a new product or a new technology, that's going to bring money, and that will allow us to support the product, to support the customer. If we look, because of course we look at those technology, we did a lot of tests. We did some design and try to simulate over the years how those products are going to behave. We don't believe today that it's a sustainable solution over a 10 or 12 years period. We think they will have more failures than with a string inverter, for example. That is more difficult to maintain. It's sexy on paper. From our point of view, it's much less sexy over a 10, 12, 15 years run. That's our belief. Of course, we have data to back that up. But again, I think this market is big enough that there is a place for different technology. And we like competition because that's also what's pushing us to get better and to prove our point, right? We have to prove ourselves to our customer and to the industry. But these are two or three, I would say, factors which explain why we don't want to go optimizer, we don't want to go microinverters, we don't want to do any acquisition of competitors, and we don't want to do it ourselves. We're firm believer into string inverters. And again, this product is also evolving, of course. And that's going to stay this way for a little while, right?
Fronius has a program for ongoing maintenance. Can you talk a little bit about that and installer program you guys have?
You want to talk about the Fronius Service Partner program?
Exactly, that's the one.
Yeah. So the idea is, of course, the product is one thing, but supporting the customer, it's always the leitmotif with us. So the idea is, how can you support the customer, especially in a huge country like Canada, where we have inverters in Yellowknife, in Vancouver, in Toronto, in Moncton, and absolutely all across the country. So you want to make sure you can provide support when it comes to installation, but also if there is a failure, because ultimately power electronic will fail at some point, and it's very important for the customer to make sure they still generate energy, right? So a few years after we started in Ontario, and I say a few years for a certain reason, we
it's an inside joke.
But I explain the real reason because it's a joke, but there is also, of course, facts for this. So the idea is that we have partners all across the country who can support the end user, so the owner of the system. And the idea, if there is a failure with an inverter, that ideally within the same day, one of our Fronius service partner who was audited, selected, trained, certified by our Fronius Tech Support in Canada is going to go on site, going to swap the inverter, send us back the inverter which is defective, where we're going to check it, fix it, have it in our pool of inverters, like exchange inverter, and again, rotate this inverter this way to, of course, try to avoid as much as possible any downtime, right? So to do this, you cannot do that alone. As a manufacturer, only from Mississauga, you need partners all across the country. So we are working with a great bunch of people all across the country. We have electrical background. We're, again, audited, trained, certified by Fronius with a refresher course all across the country. About the joke, FSP, when we started, I think from the second year or third year, we did present to the market our program. How does it work? Which type of people do we want? What do we want to do? What's the target?
And it was already up and running in Germany and Austria and other places, right?
In many already mature countries at this time, this program was running. I believe we got the second year a list of more than 700 people, company, we wanted to do FSP with us. And I don't want to go too much in the details of becoming FSP, but what we ask is two things. Basically, is FSP to be trained once we have selected them, and they have selected us, of course, but also to have a little bit of stock. Because again, I'm thinking about the system we have in Yellowknife running by minus 50 or 60 degrees Celsius in summer, and the population over there, they really rely on this. So if it goes down, they have no power anymore, so they go back to generator. But if it's too cold, even the generator, it's difficult to switch it down. So that's very important that those people are supported. So we want our FSP to have a little bit of stock, not a huge stock, but enough stock to go on site immediately, swap the inverter. So when you do this, what are you doing? You're asking potential partner to spend time, to spend money, and to invest. Because they need to come for training, they need to buy stock. Now, FSP, to have them satisfied and happy, they also need to run their business, so they also need to make money. And to make money, guess what? You need to have something to repair. The problem we had at Fronius, if I can say it's a problem, I think the first 3 or 4 years, we were shipping thousands of inverters every year. So at some point, we had 70% market share, 70 on residential, and up to 40% market share on commercial. So I would say every second inverter on the market was a Fronius inverter. But I was also looking at the inverters which were failing on site. And we are talking about less than 20 units a year. And usually they were not failing because of Fronius, but because there was something wrong with the install or something like that. So when people were asking to be FSP, I did postpone it every year because, to be honest, there was nothing to exchange and nothing to repair for years. And so what I didn't want is to set up nice people, ask them to invest. And when I see them again at the next show or when we meet a couple of months after, they say, well, great, we spend this. We have the inverter in stock with the training. And there is no failure. So what are you guys going to do?
No revenue.
So no revenues, right? So that's why we keep postponing. So I try to explain, to defend myself at every show. Because people were coming, they were really motivated. And our employees say, oh, man, let's do it. But see, guys, what are we going to tell? We're not going to lie to they're going to be our partners. So we have to tell that there is nothing to repair, nothing to fix. So when we see a little bit more failure, step by step, we'll start this network. So that's why. So there were some running jokes, but that's the real story, why we started late. Now we have dozens of thousands of inverters. Some are, of course, 12 or 13 years old, even older, because before Fronius Canada, some inverters were coming from Europe or from the US, even before the Green Energy Act.
Yeah.
So we start to have inverters which are 15 years old in the field. We're still running, but they may fail, or we're going to do now some repowering. There's a huge market for that actually for us. So now it makes sense to have this network. But at the beginning, it didn't really make sense because customers didn't need it and partners wouldn't have generate any revenues. So that's why we postponed the start a little bit. Yeah.
Fast forward to the market today. Where do you see the challenges in the industry, in the Canadian solar industry today?
There are always many challenges, but if I compare with what it was 5-6 years ago or 10 years ago, I don't want to say it's a piece of cake, but the market is more steady. The industry is more professional. It's becoming very, very, efficient to work in this industry. Another challenge for us is, is going to be on the product and on the service, because competition, as we know, is not sleeping. There are other players on the market. A lot of players come and go. We started here, we're always here, we'll always be here. But I would say we have to watch our competition and be competitive. And this is forcing us to bring new product, to be competitive, and to try to find ways to improve, not only the product, but also on the service, and to be creative.
The experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Market is there. It's us to lose or us to win, right? So we need to, we cannot sleep on the fact that, I believe really we are a great company, great team, great people, great product, but competition is not sleeping. So that's what we have to watch. And again, we love the competition, we love the fight, right?
Where do you see the opportunities?
Opportunities, of course, we all talk about batteries and hybrid inverters. It's probably still a little bit early for this now, but that's going to be something. Ultimately, we want every household in Canada and in the world to generate its own energy. So we're just at the beginning of the story today. So potential is, I'll probably be retired. that the potential will still be huge. We are changing the world at our little
one system
level, but absolutely right. But it's a revolution, right? Yeah.
With ever increasing price pressure in the market, services and value add is going to be a bigger and bigger part. How does you've already touched a little bit on the service program, but how does Fronius try to differentiate itself from other inverter manufacturers in the market?
Yeah, that's of course a very good question. Fronius was never, and I believe will never be, the cheapest. It was, never our strategy to really win on price, but more win on added value. So we touch based a little bit on it. Customers, Fronius customers and non-Fronius customers, when they call us today, when I meet with them, when we go at shows, when they call our tech support, they really love the company, they love the brand, they love our people, because they know they can rely on them. And we all know at the end of the day, you can buy an inverter which may be 10%, 20%, 50% less expensive. If the features are there, the inverter is reliable, great. If it's not the case, you still spend much more money than buying an inverter which is reliable and perform well. That's one part of the story. The second part of the story is the support. I get calls, and I think we were talking about that few weeks ago, of some people in the industry who met with Fronius, a long time ago, like the product, like everything, but made the choice to go with another brand. And today they call us back and they say, well, you're right. And I cannot find parts, or I cannot find inverters, or why you told us, maybe go, with a transformer or with something else, because the Canadian market, because of the voltage, is a very, very specific market. For us, it's our life. For any global company, the Canadian market is 2-3%.
Yeah.
So it's, it's almost nothing. So we all know it's very difficult to get manufacturer to manufacture a product just for the Canadian market, because the market is just not big enough. Now you have two ways to look at it. You can either tweak an already existing product, it looks good on the spec sheet, and sell it, see what happens. Or, our choice is always to be honest and open to say, well, we may not design a 600-volt three-phase inverter, nobody's going to do it. People are going to tweak their already existing product, but nobody's going to design a 600 three-phase inverter. We, Fronius, are not going to tweak, or adapt our product and see if it blows up after a few weeks or a few months. We are going to support you to design a solution where the non-600 volt inverter can be installed, is going to be safe, and is going to work for years. A lot of people in industry listened to us 5, 7, 10 years ago. Some didn't and call us back today. And guess what? They're going to install Fronius inverters, the older generation, with a transformer. And they would have done that 10 years ago. They would have spent much less money. So the price tag of the inverter is maybe exaggerate a little bit, but is almost irrelevant. What you are looking at is having a solution, having a system which is going to run, generate electricity with no issue. And when there is an issue, because they will have an issue at some point, you get the perfect support here. And the perfect support today, but in 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And that's, I believe, also we build the Fronius name and the Fronius brand. We may not be always the most competitive on this feature or this price and so on. But if I'm a system owner, I want my system to run and I want peace of mind. And it doesn't matter if I pay the inverter, a little bit more, or my solar panel a little bit more, if I have peace of mind and I know I'll get a backup and I'll get support behind. That's what we are selling at Fronius.
Yeah, I always say to people, if you're investing in anything on the solar installation, like the equipment, if you're looking at inverter, it's probably 10% of the total system cost, right? Installed. The inverter is the number one problem, the number one product that people have issues with. It's not the racking generally, and it's not the modules. It is the inverter. So if you're spending a little bit extra, then spend it on the inverter, because that's what makes the entire thing go. If we're talking to O&M teams now of companies that have 100, 200 megawatts installed in Ontario, and what are we talking about? Generally, it's inverter replacement, right? Because that's what's failing in the market. So and usually it hasn't been the Fronius inverters. It has been other products, and it's being replaced by a Fronius inverter or another manufacturer that has been around for a long time.
It's an interesting situation that when the system was installed, price mattered.
Yes.
Because it was always the capex cost, get it as cheap as possible. Typically, the systems were sold to other owners, retirement funds, whoever owned these large assets. Now, 5, 10 years later, inverter cost doesn't really matter anymore for those retrofits, because they need a solution that actually works and takes the problems off their hands that they had for the last few years.
Yeah. They're tired of the headaches.
They're tired of the headaches, exactly. And finding an inverter today that is compatible with these older systems, for example, lower DC voltages, the 600 volt designs we had at the beginning, and weird power classes, 600 volt, small inverters, these products don't exist anymore. So you have to adapt, as you mentioned earlier, with a transformer separately and then a different voltage inverter, just to fix the problem that you could have done with a standard inverter, which something that is available in the market in the first place.
And that's how your costs are going up. So if you flip the system after 6 months or 1 year, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
But if it's a system you are going to run for many, many years, it really matters. It really matters. Yeah.
Yeah, and for us, like, we talk to all kinds of different solar installers, right? And it's always a question here at Franken Solar that we ask our customers: what's important to you? What are your plans with this project, right? Are you just building it and walking away, and that's that? And there is a certain inverter and certain products you're using for that. We have a totally different conversation with someone that either has really cares about the long-term future of their company and service calls with their customers, because that looks bad on them if they have to keep coming back, or if even more so if the EPC that we're working with owns the asset long term. And for those guys, reliability is a key topic, right? And they generally go with products like Fronius inverters or similar products, right? That's generally the conversation we have with those. So yeah, that's important, I think. Well, I think that just about concludes it for people that want to get in contact with you or Fronius, how would they go about that? What's the best way to contact?
Yeah, it's easy. It's Fronius Canada. So if you Google Fronius Canada, you'll find our contact information. We are located in Mississauga on the 401, 10 minutes from the airport, very close to you guys, actually, which makes things also very easy. Not only for podcasts, but for meetings and support. So you guys can contact us. We have John, who is our new director of sales for solar. I believe a great guy, really driven, really passionate. We have, Arsha and Ricky, our tech support, Ted for marketing, and the whole back office team, plus our people. So the whole team is there. So you guys are, welcome to drop by anytime. We'll give you a tour. We'll show you how we work. We'll show you the team at Fronius. So it's easy if you're in the area. And of course, otherwise, just call us, email us, whatever is easy for you. And we'll be happy again to get in touch and try to support the best way we can. Yeah.
Awesome, Romuald. Again, thank you so much for making a trip up from Mississauga to Brampton here to be with us in person. And until next time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.